Okay, friends, we are now going to do a train inspired by the Polar Express book. You are going to use 1 point perspective to create your train. So let's follow along and do that together. What this 1 point perspective is going to do is it's going to help us create space in our art. So as you notice, by creating that 1 point perspective, I was able to make things appear smaller as I got farther away. So what we're going to do is you are first going to find the left-hand edge of your paper and you're going to put a dot right in the middle. I'm using a Sharpie so you can see, but please use a pencil so you can later on erase. The first thing we're going to do is build the top and bottom lines for the center of our Polar Express. So in my picture, I wanted to do more, mine's gonna end up being more of a spring themed. You do not have to make yours Christmas or winter themed, but you are gonna follow along with the first steps, and then later on I'll let you kind of add your own details. So what we're gonna do, using the edge of our ruler, we're gonna use the bottom edge. You're going to draw a line that goes from that vanishing point, and it's going to angle up, not right to the corner of the paper, see that? But it's going to get near it, so we have enough space. So we don't want to make it too skinny. I'm going to hold my ruler and line my pencil right across. So that's going to end up being the top of your Polar Express. Now for the bottom, I don't want to draw it like this because that's, you know, that would be too skinny. We're going to come down a little bit so that it ends up looking like a giant V. So this one's also gonna go almost to the corner of the paper, but not quite. So every line we're drawing to right now should go to that dot called the vanishing point. All right, so we have that. What we're gonna do right now is we're gonna build up on the details, like the windows and the center of it. So first, I'm gonna go in and add the front of mine. Now, there's gonna be some areas with this that you will have to erase, but unfortunately I can't because I use a Sharpie. So, what I'm gonna do is draw an oval at the end. So that's gonna come down from the top of that top line and go all the way up to that bottom line. So see how the top and bottom of this touches. Okay, now we're gonna draw the bottom part of our piece of our train later, so we'll wait to do that later. Okay, so now I'm going to draw 2 more circles. They're kind of like the bolts and pieces that are in our train, and then I'm going to do just like a little pattern around it. If you want to do any other details later, you can add them. Like I've seen some that wanted to do a Christmas theme that drew a little wreath in the center of their train. I'm just doing those circles to kind of look like the bolts. Okay, so now that I have that done, I'm going to start to do the windows. But before I do that, I need to make the sections of my train. So as you're noticing, these squares, they get what as they get closer to that vanishing point? Smaller. And I'm able to do that not only by using the vanishing point, but also slowly over time draw my lines closer together. So what I'm going to do with this ruler, the first part is the door where you enter the train. So I want to leave a lot of space for that. I'm going to use my ruler. I'm going to make sure I don't want it crooked. Well, 90. I want it straight up and down 90 degrees. I'm going to draw a line. Okay. And now I'm going to separate, come down. Notice how I'm not moving, and it goes from that top line to the bottom one that I drew earlier. I'm going to do another one. And then I'm going to go ahead and do another one. I'm trying to make it slightly closer to this line than I did when I was drawing this one. We don't want it too close right away because then it's going to be hard to do this later as you get near the bottom. I'm going to keep going. Notice how I'm making sure my ruler is straight up and down. I'm gonna get slightly closer. And then by the time you get near the end of that vanishing point, I mean, you really should have them pretty close together. Sometimes I do draw a few the same length apart because it does get tricky. Okay, if you have less, you want to spread it out, you can. You don't have to have so many sections in your train. Now what we're going to do is the windows, and we're going to start with the top and bottom of the window. So I'm going to line the top of my ruler with that vanishing point, and I'm going to then line my ruler up so that there's about this much showing. Then I'm going to go through and I'm just going to draw, without moving my ruler, some diagonal horizontal lines. It's very hard near the bottom because I probably shouldn't have drawn it so close to the top, but that's okay. Now I'm going to do the bottom. So I'm going to take this, line it up with the vanishing point, and draw my bottoms. Try to keep the bottoms the same length as the top, so when we connect them, they line up. So your windows and any kind of lines you draw always should go right to that vanishing point to follow the perspective. Now I'm going to draw some lines using my ruler that connect those two lines. If I have to, extend any lines, I can. Now, as you get closer to that vanishing point, it is going to be harder to see some of your details, and that's okay. And our artists, another technique they use for showing perspective is adding less detail, making their drawings lighter as they go in the distance, because our eyes in real life cannot see as much detail from far away as we can close up. Okay, so now that we have that done, I'm going to go in and I'm going to start to add the line for the bottom of the wheels of the train. So what we're going to do, line it up with a vanishing point, and we're going to draw to the edge of the paper. So I don't want to come down too far because I am going to need, I don't want giant wheels. So I'm going to go in, and that's going to be a guideline for my wheels. Now what I need to still do is draw the front part of my train. So I'm going to come in, and that's going to end at the same point as my wheels. It lines up with my wheel line. So I'm going to draw a line that comes from here. It's kind of diagonal and goes to the bottom. And I'm going to draw one on this side of the circle, and it also meets at the same point. It should kind of look slanted like this. And we're going to draw some lines coming down. This is like the front part. Now, this line coming through and this line over here at the top, you guys can go ahead and erase. I'm just going to kind of scribble so you can see. All right, so that looks like there's nothing coming out of the train or here. These lines that connect or go over, you can erase it. All right, for the wheels, we're going to do circles, and the top of the wheel and bottom wheel should line up with that line. So see how when I'm drawing it, and I want to space them out a little bit, they're lining up with that line I drew from the vanishing point. And then naturally what's going to happen as I'm drawing this are my wheels are going to get smaller. As you get closer down to the very end, you might not be able to draw too much for your wheels. I mean, I'm literally going to do dots to represent wheels down there. For our wheels, we're going to draw the centers of them, and the centers are going to appear smaller. So maybe I want to make these ones big as they get closer to that vanishing point. Okay, and then I'm going to just draw some lines in my wheels. Now your train, it usually has the area, where the part of the smoke of the train comes out. So you're going to draw a little square to show that. I drew mine kind of like a Van Gogh style with swirls in my original, but you can do, something more realistic like this. Okay. So now that I have my wheels done, I have the center of my train done, the next thing I'm going to do is the railroad, the part the train's on. So I'm going to go from that vanishing point, and I'm going to draw another line. Okay, and then what I'm gonna do is some lines that are slightly diagonal, okay, to look like the part of the train tracks. All right, if you are gonna draw any snow on the top of this, I've seen that where they've drawn little clumps of snow. A little tip for you is if you do decide to do that, you're gonna want the clumps to get smaller as they get closer to that vanishing point. You draw a door here. One thing I did forget for the door. It's just like the windows. You're gonna draw a top. It doesn't need to start at the same point. And then usually the door goes all the way down. So what I do is I just draw all the way down like this, okay? So now you're gonna add any details you wanna add. Don't worry about the background yet, but on your train, if you wanna add, you know, anything in the windows, I did a little outline on my windows. I'm gonna give my windows some curtains and I'm gonna make it look like you can see inside. I kinda want a little, like a little lamp to be hanging from them. Keep in mind as you go down, you're gonna draw less, so you're gonna draw things smaller, and it might get to a point where you won't see a whole lot of that detail, and it's okay. So that's the start of your train. Go ahead and just on your train add whatever details you want.